Hello and welcome back to Take Two. We're your hosts. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Stacy.
And we are both licensed therapists. And today we are talking about loneliness. So, per usual, this was inspired by me late night scrolling on TikTok and coming across the cutest I sent it to you. How?
It's really sweet.
Right?
Yes.
So, I don't even know where it was. I think it was Australia New Zealand, somewhere not in the U.S.
Yeah.
They did this experiment where they brought in young children in to be with people. Where's it?
It's like a retirement home.
Yeah. And so there was I deep dived these videos. So there were two ways they did it. They did it with really young kids and they did it with teenagers.
Okay.
And really what they were looking at is seeing if it would impact the older people in their loneliness and how they felt.
Yeah.
And it brought me to tears. I'm not
kidding.
It
was so sweet. And then they focused on the one guy that was kind of resistant.
Very resistant.
Not open to doing things with other people and talking about how connecting with his little buddy or whatever it was really brought him out of his shell. And it was the one thing that kind of got him going.
Yes.
Because, loneliness is a big deal.
Yes. And it was so cute. And they did one with this older gentleman and a teenage boy, and they ended up sailing the world together. Like, how cute.
I love that.
So they really fostered and created lifelong friendships, and it was beautiful to see. And I think with the little kids, they talked about how the older people got a lot more out of it, maybe than the younger kids did. But with the teens, they saw that the impact
reciprocal
was for both of them. Yes. So we'll post those videos to our social so you guys can check them out.
No, I loved that.
But right.
And I did happen to think, someday is that going to be us? It'll be like Lindsay is at the retirement home and
visiting Stacy.
Stacy won't come out. So I just hope that we can keep that in mind.
No, maybe we'll still be doing a podcast out of the retirement.
I'll be like, please, can we stop? No, we cannot.
That is so funny.
I did think of that. I had that thought.
Stop. We're not that big of an age difference.
Yeah, no, we're not. 20 years.
20 years. A simple years. 20. What's 20 years?
Young energy, old soul.
Exactly.
I say that. That's
a good way to put it.
That's what I think makes it work.
That's amazing.
But, okay, let's just talk in general. We can talk more about that TikTok because it was so amazing. And I'm glad that you flagged it because I think it is such a big topic right now with people being lonely of all ages, not just older people, but just to define loneliness. Yes. Loneliness is the gap between the level of connectedness that you want and what you have. So it's subjective. It's not really, you don't have enough social touch points or you're not out enough, because as we know, you could be with people and still feel lonely. So it's just about the connection that you want and what you have.
And I think I love that definition too, because it also brings in the importance of I'm a social person, so I need a lot more people connections. My sister is not a social person, as social as I am, where she, we talk about this introvert versus extrovert, comes a little bit more drained from spending too much time. So to the point of that, it's more about yourself and what connection or loneliness is for you.
When you feel lonely, it's going to be very different than the circumstances that she might feel lonely.
Yes.
But something really interesting is we talked about the old people because that was the TikTok. But the research shows that young adults are reporting quite a bit more loneliness than people over the age of 65.
That is very interesting.
Yeah.
And I think we idealize that time of your life, right? When you're young and, you're going out all the time and you're supposed to be having the time of your life. So there's this pressure to be at your best life at this age. And I know we're seeing it in our offices, so many young people coming in feeling isolated, feeling lonely, and feeling disconnected.
We talked about this before, that the 20s are a rough period. And I do think you're right. I think they're kind of idealized. Or again, if you look at social media, it might be you're traveling and you're in these great relationships. But I don't think that's always the way that it feels. And I think maybe there's pressure there.
Yeah, I think the year after college, for me, was my loneliest year.
Really?
Yeah, definitely.
What about it?
Well, I think a couple of things with that. I went from college where I was surrounded by people all the time and my friends, and I had so many friends, and dating. I had my first very serious boyfriend, so it was coming off a high of senior year.
Right.
And then I was a year older than all of my friends in college, so I moved home.
Okay.
And then they were all having the time of their life, and I was living in my parents' going to grad school every day and working Saturdays, so it felt...
That's really different than living. I think that is true, that you come out of college where you are living among people, you're in class with people, and then you either go to school, or you have a job, and it's like you might not be connecting with those people at work. Like it's hit or miss, I feel like.
Yes.
So you're just kind of put in this new situation.
Yeah, and we've been fed this narrative, like college are the best years of your life. So people come out of school, and a lot of my clients talk about like, this is it. This is my life for the rest. Like this is what my life's going to look like for ever. So feeling disconnected from peers because you're not living with all your friends anymore, things like that. I hear a lot of talk about like having existential crises, like what's the meaning of life and
like I have to figure this all out, kind of
feeling like they're running out of time.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of comparison, like you said, on social media, but also like career wise.
Well, and do you think part of loneliness maybe at that age is because people do start to really focus on their career, or they feel like, okay, I have to do this now, so maybe social things take a back seat too?
Yeah, I think it's just a huge transition point.
It is a big transition time.
Anytime we have big transitions, I think emotionally it's hard to adjust.
Yeah.
But I think, you went from... At least from my experience and a lot of my clients, I was working as a waitress and like spending all my money on trips and food and not as much pressure of like really
life
creating
it's like a bubble.
Your future.
I think college can be kind of a bubble for some, not for everybody. But.
Yeah. And I think then the people who don't go to college, there's a profound fear of I'm behind or like feeling they're missing out on something or lonely. And they did a really interesting study where they took college students and asked them their anxiety levels and their stress levels while they were in college.
Okay.
And then those same people, they asked them, how stressed were you in college? How, like, those same questions.
Looking back.
And like many things in life, we think about it with rose-colored glasses. What they reported while they were in college was really high rates of anxiety and stress. But when they were older, looking back at college, they reported that they weren't anxious and they weren't stressed.
Well, maybe it's relative. Because they're like, actually, I thought I was stressed about a test, but now I have to like pay for my rent.
Right. And and this is like way down the line. So I think too, we idealize college.
Yeah.
And we look back at it as like maybe a little bit different than how it actually felt in the moment.
Yeah. And I do think though, it has to be, you have more opportunity to connect when you're at college because you have the shared interest of being in school. You have your major, you're in classes. A lot of people do Greek life or clubs. So I think that lends itself. So then I think you lose that built-in socialness and it can be really lonely.
That's a good point.
And before we go on about just the differences in ages, let's just state how important connection and like loneliness can be. There's a study that shows that loneliness is as harmful to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. I see that study brought up all the time, and that is insane to me.
I think that's a good way to tangibly think about how impactful loneliness can be.
Yes, it really
and how hard it feels.
Yes, it affects your immune system. There's just so many things that are hit when you are lonely and not connected. Connection's important.
Yes. Definitely. I haven't even opened my book yet.
I know.
What am I doing here?
Where are we?
Okay. Yes. So we see actually a lot more loneliness in young adults and understanding why that is. And I think you brought up a good point of throughout your life, you go to school with your friends, you do these things with peers, and then you get to college or after college, especially after college, those things aren't built in anymore. Remote work, distraction, it's easier to feel like you're connecting with TV or on social
media. Honestly.
But in reality, it's not the same as like in-person people connection.
Yeah, I think that is like technology. We always talk about the positive and the negative. And I think it can be positive. I think, again, it depends on how you use it. I think, if you're FaceTiming or if you're like in a group, that's good. But if you're just scrolling TikTok or
doom scrolling.
If you're doing that, you're losing out on the opportunity to maybe call somebody or, it probably has replaced a lot of the things that we used to do because we don't have to.
It's easy to just grab your phone.
And it's like not bad, but it's like then you have to just be mindful.
Yes.
In talking about young people, I also want to say parents are lonelier than non-parents.
Oh,
does that surprise you?
No, that does not surprise me at all. But tell me more about that. What did you see that in your clients?
Yeah, I think it really just depends. I think we've talked about new parents and transitioning. That's a hard transition. I think if you're not surrounded by new parents or other people that can relate to you, that can feel very lonely. And you're just at a different stage.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I think you shared with me a lot about when you first had Avery, like your oldest, about like your family lived in a different state. Like you were kind of
Yes. I mean, my parents would come in and they helped a lot, but I would just be at the window like a puppy waiting for them because I didn't have
Please hurry.
I didn't have a ton of friends in Chicago because I had just come here for school.
Yeah.
You know, so I had friends where I grew up, but it was a lonely time. I don't know. What do you think was your loneliest time?
I know. Either I think after the year after college, or I would say when I was
What?
It's just like so funny. It's not funny, but it's like kind of funny. When I was in middle school, I was really struggling. Like I always had, you know Maggie, one of my friends.
Cue the nervous laughter.
Yeah,
trauma.
Whenever I'm nervous, I laugh. But like I always had, like I was social, right?
Yeah.
So in school, teachers would be like,
I know, I can't
very
imagine
connected.
you not having friends.
Right, but I didn't. Like I didn't have like a solid group of friends, and I was really struggling to make friends. And I think, those things when you're like trying too hard that then people don't want to be friends with you. I think that was me a little bit. But I specifically remember like literally getting on my hands and knees and praying to God, like, please bring me friends.
Are you being serious?
I swear to God.
That is so sad.
It's actually so sad.
Aww.
And I was like, I never have to have a boyfriend. Just please give me like a friend group.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Well, and you know what? Like that goes to show that's such a
little Lindsay.
Yeah, I know, and I can't imagine because really you were so social, and I do feel like people are just drawn to you.
Yeah,
but that goes to show. I mean, that's nice, I think, for younger people to hear.
Yes,
what your social lot in life, like middle school or high school, it does not affect. That does not mean that that's your path
forever. Yeah,
but that's so interesting that it was that bad.
No, it was that
you
bad.
did tell me. I do remember you telling me. In middle school, there were some.
It was rough.
Well, and in middle school too, I feel like one not nice person can kind of tank it for you.
Yes.
So then it's like I wasn't lonely, and then one person decided they don't like me,
and they isolate you a little.
So
bit
how did that play out? Like, did the good Lord answer your prayer?
The Lord brought me friends. No, like I think when we get to the piece about advice for when you're feeling lonely, but I just really getting involved in things. Then you meet people. Like I did cheerleading, which helps me feel more connected, and something to focus on. In summer school, my sophomore year, everybody takes like a class in summer, so you could take one less class during the year, and that's where I met my friend Grace, and then we kind of built a friend group together. We'll talk about that,
but I love that as you have to kind of put yourself out there.
Yes, I had to like keep trying.
Okay.
The praying was one way to help myself, but I needed to like
knees,
actively,
literally on the knees as a middle schooler. So that's pretty interesting.
I had to actively like put myself in situations where I could meet people.
Yeah,
which is hard.
It's not going to fix itself, and it's very hard. I know. I was thinking about. I know we talk a lot about that. I was lonely when I first had my daughter because I didn't have a lot of friends in the same position, and I didn't have family here. But also thinking about when I moved here, it was for law school, so I didn't know people. And my husband was actually living in Arizona because he was doing a project there. Yeah. So it's kind of on my own. And I would literally go downstairs. We had we lived in a high rise, and we had a mart or whatever, like a little like convenience store on the bottom floor. I would always get like frozen pizza and cookie dough. Like even on the weekends, I swear, I was like pretty lonely doing nothing.
What can I do?
Yeah. Went back there either 10, 15 years later with my parents. And the guys who own it were like, "Oh, you're the cookie dough girl."
Stop.
Yeah. So I was like, "Oh yeah, I think the cookie dough was my friend."
The cookie dough is how you felt connected
for those 3 years. But it is interesting,
to
look at times to be like, "Wow, I really just didn't have the same level of connection."
And do you think like you were aware of that at the time, or do you think sometimes we're disconnected, we don't even realize how much it's impacting us?
I think I was aware of it. But I think I knew, like, I'm new here, and I was a little older than people I was in school with, and I was married. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't really, like, dying to do, you know what I mean? Yeah. Some of the things. But, no, I think I knew it.
Yeah.
I think I was like, I could maybe not be making the cookies every night.
By yourself?
Literally 15 years later, the cookie dough girl.
The cookie dough girl.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I think that leads us into the next question. Did we talk a little bit how it impacts us?
Yeah, I mean, just health-wise, the immune system and anxiety and depression, mental health-wise, loneliness is a big risk factor. If you're really lonely, it's likely
that it can lead into.
It can bleed into, can lead to anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
So that's why you really want to pay attention to like, am I feeling isolated? Am I feeling as connected as I want to be?
Yes.
And my thought when we were talking about it before is like maybe doctors should have screenings for that.
Yeah.
Because it does have so many mental health and physical health implications.
And I think it's a way to climb out of that depressive hole or to, as much as it can impact our mental health negatively, feeling connected and not feeling lonely can impact our mental health positively.
Yes.
So I agree. I think that there should be some way of screening. And we talk, I mean, I'm sure you experience this too. When I'm talking with clients all the time, they don't have the language or understanding of mental health. So sometimes people feel lonely and we don't understand how much it's impacting our world. Like, how we feel, how we're interacting with people. So
yeah, or even if you just know, okay, I feel anxious or I'm feeling down, you might not tie that to the fact, I'm not feeling connected to people or I'm not going out and, recharging with people. So just even to draw that line, that's why I think the screening would be helpful.
Yes. Yeah, I like that idea. I know. They should just do it all they do a lot for anxiety. Or ACE scores is like looking at childhood trauma. And so I like the idea of like adding in some loneliness scales.
Like, especially like we talk about like that age that in your 20s when you might be struggling, and let's not let it, let's catch it before it gets worse. Like we always talk about.
Yes.
Let's be a little more preventative about it.
Because it's a lot easier to put yourself out there when you're feeling a little lonely than if you've kind of dug yourself into feeling really isolated.
Yes.
And how do you...
Oh, and we talked about that too, how it can be really hard when you are depressed or when you are down or feeling like you're struggling with something other people aren't. You almost like pull back and then you don't engage, you don't have that connection, but it makes it worse. You know what I mean? It's a cyclical thing.
Well, I think we talk a lot about having clients or parents who are dealing with really hard things with their kids and then being around parents or family members who are stressed about different things for their kids. It's like, is my kid going to pass the AP test? Or are they going to get an A in this class? Or what college are they going to get into? And other parents are dealing with more like...
Which, as you say that, it makes me think of two things. Number one, like it's important to get in a group maybe where other people are struggling. Like I know there's online groups, like if your kid has a chronic illness or if your child is struggling with mental health.
Yeah.
And I think it really helps to actually connect with people that are going through the same things as you. Because when we talk about we can be lonely in a room full of people, that's a great example. When everybody else is... oh, my kid didn't make varsity or this AP test, is going to be so stressful. And then if there's somebody else struggling with something on a totally different level.
Like, is my kid getting it out of bed today?
Yes,
or are they self-harming? Like things that are a different level.
You're going to feel alone in that room. So, yeah. That's an interesting point.
And as we're talking about how to help yourself with loneliness, I think that's to the point, it's hard when we feel stuck, especially when it's about mental health stuff or around our family. I think we rally around someone who has physical illnesses so much, right? Like we see it in this town. If somebody's kid gets diagnosed with cancer, it's like the whole community is behind them, making them meals, all these things. And research supports when someone is going through that cancer, it will increase the rate of likelihood of them surviving if they have a lot of support around them.
Because support and connection is so important.
For your health.
Yes.
And then we look at depression, which can be equally as devastating to a family. And it's
just so different.
Hiding it.
It's just so different because people don't want to come out and say it because it is still somewhat stigmatized. And that's a great example of that it still is.
Yes.
Because we have come a long way. And I think especially in our world, we're like, no, everybody talks about it. But like, no, not
we're just surrounded by the people who do talk about it.
We talk about it, but like not everybody does. But what a great example if there's, let's say somebody's child is hospitalized for a mental health issue. Not likely. Most people don't do a Facebook status. So you don't get the casserole or you don't get, the offers for support.
Yeah.
So that is
and like stepping in and helping support the siblings and different things like that. So I think, and we're going to talk a little bit about siblings in our next episode, but I think that can really be a huge, huge barrier to getting that support around loneliness when it comes with the mental health lens of a child struggling or significant other. But going on to just if you're feeling lonely and how can you feel more connected.
Yes.
So if it is a situation like that, definitely joining groups or finding that support system if you don't have it.
Finding a place where you don't feel alone.
Yes. And with young adults, since we've talked a lot about young adults, I think, or even parents who feel isolated just by being a new mom or that transition phase, I think we do so much comparison online. Of like, they're all out with their friends, or this mom's got it all together. Or, when I was feeling isolated, I'm like, all my friends are on a trip together that I wasn't invited to. Like, that feels devastating. And I would sit there and I would just watch every story, every Instagram post. It's like, I don't need to be looking at that. That's not helpful.
Mm-hmm. Also, as you're saying that, what is the story you're telling yourself about that? So maybe that's where like the therapy piece comes in. You're telling yourself, oh, they didn't want me. Oh, I'm guessing. I'm putting myself in your head. They didn't want me, or, the reasons you weren't invited.
Yes.
And maybe it's like, well, I wasn't with them the night they planned this trip. Or you just don't know.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So just checking your thinking in terms of people don't want me there, or I don't want to burden people. I think that's something that we can do with people in therapy.
And if it is a group of people who don't want to spend time with you, stop putting your energy there. Like, create new relationships and friendships. So I think we talk about feeling connected to doesn't have to come from people. It could be like mind, body, like the gardening, like nature. Getting connected with nature.
Yes.
Yoga helps you get connected with your body and yourself.
Yeah.
Reading, being creative are great ways to feel connected.
Purpose.
Finding a purpose. Doesn't have to be a huge purpose, but
no, like a hobby. Like there is purpose in getting up, and if you're gardening, that you go like tend to your garden or whatever it is. Like that is a connection.
Yes.
So spiritual connection to an animal. That counts.
Yes,
definitely. That is something that makes people feel less lonely. Certainly.
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of different ways. And the big word we keep saying is connection.
Yeah.
So when we think about loneliness, we want connection. So how can you connect with yourself, with others, with hobbies, with activities, and taking away the pressure of you have to figure it out all right now.
Yeah, and finding those places where you don't feel alone, where you really do have, either a shared interest or you feel understood or safe.
Yes.
So I think, and something else is we talk about behavioral activation. Sometimes if you're lonely and you're down, you're not going to want to leave the house. So making a plan and sticking to it and just taking little steps to get out there, because it can feel hard, I think, when you're down and you're just kind of in the habit of I'm alone or I'm not going to see people.
Yes, and it feels too big to fix.
Yeah.
So I like that idea of taking small steps, like sitting outside while you drink your coffee and not having your phone with you, or going for a walk or just texting
somebody.
someone.
I mean, honestly, that's a first little step.
Yeah.
And I think it is also look at the relationships you already have, and are there relationships that you want to nurture? To your point, maybe not all of them are like great and you don't feel good.
Yeah.
So, but look at where do I feel good and connected, and can I nurture what I already have? And then I guess the next step, if you feel like you need more, would be like, do I need to go out and join a club? Or
get involved.
Do something that would allow me to feel more connected.
And stop the comparison.
Yeah.
Because it's not what it seems. And I've been parts of big groups where it's like you look online, it looks like the most fun trip ever. But while we were there, everyone was arguing, everyone's talking bad about each other. Like that's...
Yeah.
So don't watch those narratives we're creating in our head about
I think the way that
people.
The way that you think about it can really be big.
Yes.
Okay, so for the take two...
Yeah.
Maybe look at where you are in, your level of connectedness. Are you wanting more? And if you are, what can you do?
What's a small step you can take to feel more connected?
Yeah.
I love that.
And I think you could also maybe even try to support other people. Like I still love the idea of that TikTok, the old, if we can link it somewhere, the old guy and the little kids. It's just so cute.
I know.
So if you want to do
something. It makes me want to call my Nana and be like, hi, just want to tell you I love you.
I know. I used to have a buddy. I told you this, didn't I?
Oh,
my mom literally, I had a buddy at the retirement home right by our house. And I don't know how this happened. Her name was Ruth. And my mom would just send me in there with vacation pictures. And I remember feeling so awkward. I'd be like, hey, Ruth, here's my pictures.
Me and my family.
But I'm sure she liked that.
Aww.
Do you know what I mean? So just even thinking, knowing that helping other people can light people up so much and make you feel connected. So maybe looking for a window where you can do that too.
Some volunteer work for sure.
Where you can help other people.
Yes. Yeah. I think coaching helped me, now that I'm thinking about it, when I was young. Coaching brought me a lot of connection It wasn't with my peers, but I felt like happy, fun.
And purpose.
Yeah, and felt like I had purpose and was impacting other people's lives.
Yeah, I think that checks a lot of boxes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we always need more youth coaches out there, so.
All right.
All right, thank you for, you're done. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm like, we're done with the coaching. We're done. She's going to take on another full cheer team.
No. Just helping out.
Oh my gosh. All right, well. Okay. Let's take 2 this week and check in with how we're feeling and what we need.
Yes, love it. And for anyone looking to see this video that we talked about with these great way that they helped different generations connect, you can follow us on our socials, which is
take2.pod
on Instagram and take2pod on TikTok.
Yes.
All right, bye.
Thank you guys.
The double wave.
I gotta always do the double wave.
It kills me every time.
Thank you for listening to the Take Two podcast. Lindsay and Stacy are licensed therapists, but they aren't your therapists, and this podcast is not therapy. Production assistance is provided by Bird Blue Creative at bird.blue.